Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. This week is True Crime Week, and our first guest is Jay Parker, who's talking about his book, The Machine of War. Welcome, Jay.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for being on. And I guess the one thing I want to ask you is, how does it feel? What's the most rewarding thing about publishing a book?
Well, when you write, you want to be read. So I think that's the most rewarding thing, is that it's out there to be read. I spent most of my life being a playwright, so it was always really rewarding on opening night, hearing, or even on the read through, the first read through, to hear the thing come to life.
Right.
And so when it's out there to be read and people are responding to it, it's a really great feeling.
What kind of responses have you received, though, Jay? I mean, most have been pretty positive.
Yeah, pretty positive. Yeah,
Okay.
positive responses. There's a lot of action in it. So
Yes.
I do want to see the look. I do want to see the looks on some people's faces who have seen some of your previous work, stage comedies, to read this one, because it's very different. And so it is a book about a soldier returning home from World War II to Illinois. Now, today he would probably be considered diagnosed with PTSD, perhaps.
Yeah.
And he's seen violence, and boy, is he a person of violence, although there's a little bit of an irony to it. And I'll try very hard not to plot spoil.
Okay.
Normally we review books and movies, we just plot spoil like nothing, but we have the published author here. We don't want to do that.
Right, yeah.
So I do want to say, the thing that really jumps off the page to me, several things, but one thing is its sense of place. If somebody would tell me that this book was written in 1946 and not 2021, I wouldn't bat an eye, because the details are so on point. And I'll give you a couple of examples. I ordered a hamburger sandwich with fried potatoes as opposed to hamburgers and fries. A doctor walking away from a little thing that happened, perhaps a crime scene, with a cigarette in his mouth. The old telephones, and it really got the sense of place on point. So congratulations on that. And I guess my question would be, why that era? What impresses you about that time?
What impresses me about that is, another writer who read the book said he really appreciated that my book was written in World War II and not Vietnam, because you get so many stories about the Vietnam vets having PTSD, and it's kind of a trope where my grandfather was in the World War II, and he was he was captured, put in a POW camp, tried to escape, and they shot him and stuff like that. Anyway, when he came back home, I remember as a kid, him lifting his shirt, you could see like shrapnel just under his skin, and when there'd be like a loud noise, he'd respond to it, and so you didn't hear a lot about PTSD with World War II people. There's a documentary by John Huston called Let There Be Light, and it deals with PTSD in soldiers. And what they did was, in the hospital, they would tell these guys, the battles you've been in and stuff shouldn't have any effect on you. It's probably the way you were raised, and tried to kind of skirt it like that. So I wanted to kind of show that there was a guy who just kind of lost his innocence as he went to war and came back with this.
Now that I could see, I didn't know that about your grandfather, but regarding the place though, because I understand the time period now, but the place, did you have to do some back research and travel there? Because I don't know anything about Illinois or even that type of those type of towns.
That was based, that place, Tully, Illinois, was based on the town where my mother grew up.
Oh.
And it's the town that she grew up in was Sterling. And I've been there a couple of times. It's a very small town. She worked at a movie theater. And so I just did a lot of research on Sterling, you know. Yeah.
I mean, even the movie theater, it's funny. I got a movie projection license and a union and all that. So I was thinking, did Jay work at a theater? Because he seems to get everything. All this is right.
I did work at a movie theater.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It was all perfect.
Yeah.
It's great.
Now, I do want to mention, I thought it was pretty effective how you would sometimes go out of the battlefield. So this is Illinois, like you were mentioning, and this family that he goes back to, his own family, but then he will flashback maybe to the past. But there is a really great moment where there's they're on the battlefield and there's a baby who can't stop crying, and so it's pretty impressive that scene. So I do like the back and forth that you bring out sometimes, and the little detail. So this is a kind of a writer question, but I'm trying to remember that we're doing Pod and Deliver too as a teaching thing. But I have a writer question that will maybe help people as writers and teachers. You have a lot of details and complications in your story and a lot of characters. And my question is, several murders murders. Did you outline this?
No, I didn't outline it. I knew where I was going with it.
That bums me out. That bums a lot of writers out to read this. You knew where you were going, though. Okay, keep going.
There's the, I forgot what they call it, the pantsters. I'm a pantster where you just fly by the seat of your pants. And then there's the plotters. So, but I always know what the ending is going to be. So I knew what the ending was going to be. And so I just, as the writer, as the craft goes, I just kept throwing things at him. Yeah.
That was one of my later questions. Did you know your ending? That's very important, isn't it?
Yeah. For me it is. When I was writing plays, I wrote a lot of farces, and this was very similar to writing a farce, where everything had to be set up, and if you take one little thing out, the whole thing will fall apart, and it needs to move fast so you don't go, wait a minute,
Right. And so you say you wrote farces, which are more comedy driven, ridiculous situations. Right. And you're seeing a similarity to that. Are there particular writers, or maybe one writer that influenced you in going into this in particular?
One of my favorite writers of all time has been Jameson Kane. He wrote The Postman Always Rings Twice and Double Indemnity, which both books are really popular. Both movies were really popular, and it's the same story.
Yeah, pretty similar.
But the way he wrote fast at a steady clip. His books are usually about 200 pages, and so he's a huge influence on me.
I was just thinking about that. I was able to, not all books I could read very quickly, but I realized if I'm reading a book and I'm getting through it pretty fast, it's keeping my interest. And because, at first, Jay, I wasn't sure what I was reading. I said, is this going to be like a violent, like just shoot 'em up? Then it got into, like crime, noir feeling. And I'm like, wow. And it kind of reminded me thinking, did you picture doing this like, hey, you know what, maybe if this ever becomes a film, because in films, especially films like, or books like this, you have to have an action sequence right in the beginning just to grab their attention. But once that happened, I was in for the ride. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna see this through. Was that part of your choice?
It's funny. When I first, like my first couple of drafts, was about this guy. I was really looking to write like this literary piece, you know. It was about this guy that comes home, he's struggling, and I got about 60 pages into it. I'm going, I really like this, but nothing is happening. You know, he's going to the movies, he's going to the barber, you know. And so I wrote the first draft, and I kept rewriting it, sending it out to beta readers. And the one common thread was, hey, this is a slow burn, which for some people that's great. People like the slow burn, you know.
They never want to end. Yeah.
Right. And as you read and you start picking up the mood, then the things start speeding up. But I thought, well, do I do I really want to give somebody the advantage to say, hey man, this is just moving way too slow for me. So I went back and I added some elements to it to where it picks up right off the top.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Jake, I'm going to ask you a question in a few minutes, which is how would you teach this? But what I would teach is the foreshadowing. There's moments where you get a glimpse of who this guy is. It's part of the slow burn that you're describing, where you see something and there's a little hint that this guy might explode. However, there's a little bit of an irony, perhaps, or maybe a red herring you might have thrown in there. And maybe I'm dumb, or I didn't. Maybe I'm reading too into it. But there's a moment where I thought it was really great because you gave, and maybe I'm misreading this, but you gave us a guy who perhaps is low on his meds and is getting ready to explode, and you build into it, but then you give us something else. Yeah. Was that intentional, or am I reading into things?
Yeah, when it started becoming a murder mystery, and then all the suspects are up there, you're also thinking, the idea is you're also thinking, well, could it be him? Is he just an unreliable narrator? And
right.
Yeah. By the way, the reason I think foreshadowing is important in helping writers is that when I teach, creative writing at my school, is because I noticed that some inexperienced writers will tack on an ending that they did not earn.
Right.
And so I started saying, look at these other. So I guess my question to you, and then I'll ask you that question I was going to ask you, Jake. But I guess my question to you, Jay, is how do you help? I'm laughing because I've seen you in action a couple of times in this area. How do you help creative writers who give you a play or a story? What's the most useful advice? Some common thing that you've seen that might help a writer?
Well, when it came to playwriting, it was always make sure you're telling the story clearly, because we get so much freedom on stage to be creative, and when we do that, sometimes we lose what the story is. And so if we're telling a story, I think that's what I used to tell my students is concentrate on the story, and what moves the story along is conflict and drama. So, and that's pretty much the same for the book. If I'm telling the story clearly, and if they're with me, then I could pretty much do whatever I want.
Yeah, there definitely was conflict throughout the whole book. I mean, things were happening. That's why I think it's such an easy read. And actually, I don't want to go ahead of myself, but I think you're about to ask me that question.
Well, the question was, how would you teach this? In the context of your class, or maybe not?
No, I would, because I was thinking about it, because this is definitely post-World War II. I teach World War II and the aftermaths. And I would definitely, and we're usually concerned about U.S. soldiers and U.S. What's happening in the home front. So I would definitely read it as a book out loud, because we had Wade Harlan recently come and talk to us about reading to your students. And I would read the book to the students. I know there's some language, but I have juniors and seniors, and I think I can get away with it. And so sharing, and probably not for a younger crowd, but maybe for the older crowd. And I would share that and give them, but also have some prompts beforehand, like regarding PTSD and regarding just you know, the war and how it affected people when they came back home and how they were looked at. And so, because that could even, you know, be an intro to Vietnam regarding how they looked at soldiers. So anyway, every day would be some type of writing assignment where they would reflect on a part of the book, because I think there's plenty of things we could talk about regarding not only PTSD but also relationships, regarding even in war, where sometimes you do things that are pretty ugly, and a lot of times you don't share that with, you only share it with certain people because you're not sure how they're going to take it. And he kept a lot inside him, Thomas, until he felt okay to talk to his father about it. And there's reasons for that, but I think those would be good conversations to have with my students, and I think it'd be fun to bring this up to them. I think they would love it.
Actually, too, Jake, don't you teach psychology as well at times?
Oh yeah, I do.
So,
I'm teaching, yeah.
So the idea, keeping along the theme of PTSD, I notice, without giving too much away, we're reviewing another book, but there's with another very strong character. But I noticed the similarity between, and you know I'm talking about Jake. You know, there's a similarity between that character and this main character in that they both, in the middle of their struggle with all this going on, in this case PTSD, they were both drinking. And so now you can see that somebody who just drinks, it might not have a impact, but if you combine it with other elements to a personality, was that an intentional, Jay? This man who is PTSD, although not diagnosed, also is drinking it, which is giving it another level, which is very much worse. Would you say that's true?
Right. Yeah. The more things get out of hand, the more the PTSD gets out of hand, and his situations around him. He starts self-medicating.
Right.
To a point where eventually he wants the thing that's going to pretty much put him into a coma. You know, kind of wanting that. So. And
I think that's what, and I think we mentioned it before, but that's why I really like the book. Is one of the reasons is that I started thinking, man, this guy, is this the guy? Did he really? Maybe he killed him, you know, just because it's all happening. He's blacking out and he's not sure, and he's having these crazy dreams, right? That, you know, he's doing some ugly things. Go ahead.
Without plot spoiling, I think part of the drama of the book is because one of the questions I was going to ask you is what genre is this? Because I can categorize books, and I like to do that, especially when I'm recommending them. But I think at heart, this is a mystery.
Yeah.
For me, it is anyway. I mean, and you're comfortable with that category, right, Jay? Because I kept asking myself, what's going to happen here?
Yeah, I gave it kind of a genre of suspense mystery. You know, I think there's a couple of really suspenseful scenes in there that I really worked hard on crafting. So
I bet.
You know, so I wanted to make sure those got in, and then the mystery of it all. Yeah. Is
that kind of when you read, Jay? Are you more drawn to that type of literature, or is that just okay?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. As a playwright, I used to write a lot of comedies and so forth, but I've never read a book that's sustained humor, you know, long enough. You know, I've read some kind of memoirs or things like that are, you know, funny and witty and stuff like that. But I've never been able to kind of cross over that into the, you know,
right.
Now, as you reflect on this book, and as you in your completion of it, and as you've been experiencing this, what are you thinking about a next project, or is it like, I'm not even thinking about that?
Oh no, I have a book that's going through editing right now that should come out. I'm shooting for April, but I'm not really sure that's going to happen. But I'm shooting for April.
Well, that's pretty quick after.
And this is the same kind of genre.
Yeah, it's a suspense thriller, and
Okay.
it's set in 1954 Hollywood.
I like how you're going back and you capture the mood so well, because I was thinking this could have been written at that time period, but also it's people today can appreciate it as well, just because
Yeah.
people are people, right? And the way they behave.
Well, one thing about suspense is like today, you have to be very, very clever, to create suspense because, you're not rushing to the other side of town. You're just picking up a cell phone and going, "Hey, where you at?"
That's right. Yeah, you have more.
That guy's a killer.
Actually, yeah, it makes you more creative when you go back in time, I guess. That's
Yeah.
great.
So when you go back in time and you're looking for phone booths and
Right.
change and stuff like that,
I like that. Even like a nickel, buy me a Coke with
Right.
this nickel.
right.
That was great. Oh man.
Now, what about? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What about this for aspiring writers, people who are just putting up the Google Doc and they're writing and then they get stuck and things like that? What advice, as you think about your own writing process and some of the struggles you've had as a writer, because I think all writers have, what's a valuable piece of information for them they could go away?
When I've been acting and writing since I was a teenager, which was a long, long, long time ago, and when I decided that it wasn't going to be a money thing, I didn't write or act to make money. I worked in order to act and write, and to support my family. So when I decided that it wasn't going to be about a money thing, that gave me so much more freedom to do what I wanted to do. And so I get that out of there. I'm not writing to be rich or anything like that. I'm just writing because that's what I do.
Maybe that's when good things happen,
Usually that's exactly what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, when I was reading it, Jay, I do a lot of driving to work. It takes me like an hour to get to work and back. So I do a lot of, what are those, auto books? Have you thought about doing your books through that, or?
Yeah, it's a process, but I'm working on the audio book for Machine of War.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Now, I'll ask you questions. When I was reading, there's a lot of characters like Ruben shared. I mean, are they based on real people, or is it just kind of, this is your,
Yeah, some of them are based on real people.
Like that Leland guy, maybe a young Ruben Aguilar.
No.
I'll be him before Bronson.
Oh, that's right. Are you free to meet Ruben? Sure.
Yes. No. Well, very good. Now you could. I have a question, maybe a final question too, but I just got asked a question that was actually hard for me to answer because we did so many plays. So Jay and I used to run the Lizard Theater, the old Lizard Theater in Alhambra, but somebody asked me a play that everybody should see. And I was really stumped, and I did come up with a title. So you could answer both of these questions or one of these questions, but a play everyone really should see, and a book, a thriller, everybody or most people wouldn't be able to put down.
Right.
Give it a stab.
Okay. Well, a play that I think everyone should see, if you're American, Death of a Salesman, because
Great
that's
choice.
about America and capitalism and all that good stuff. And then a thriller or a mystery suspense novel that everyone should read, probably Machine of War by J. Cameron Porter.
There you go.
You
Perfect
find that
response.
on Amazon and ebook and Kindle and Nook.
Yes, and I read mine on Nook, but as you mentioned, Jay, you could read it on a Kindle. Please check it out. It's good. It's a thriller. It is full of characters that are very strange, funny, and especially the main character, who is many layers. And it's I have to be careful because several times it's easy to give this away because we want to talk about it. We want to talk about the ending and things like that. But check it out, everybody. Any last word there, Jake?
No, I think definitely. I think it's gonna be very difficult just to read it like in a few days. You're gonna finish it in a couple of days just because it's an easy read. It's a fun read, and I can't wait to write your next one. There, I mean, have it done. I know you're working on it now, Jay. But thanks for giving it to us readers to read it. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me on the show. I love it. I watch the movie review ones all the time.
Oh, cool.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining us.
Right.
And we'll see you next time, everybody. Bye-bye.